Hi everyone, sorry for the video. I know it's not the best way of getting this information out, but unfortunately we're not going to have a PD together this Wednesday, and I need to get some information out to all of you about the writing task that your students need to do, ideally next week, because school gets very busy after next week and we've got a lot to do. And so the only way to get that information out to you really is via video, and then you can send me any questions or messages and we can kind of clear up any points. So we need to get our students to do their end of term 1 writing assessment. You would have done one at the end of the first half term. We need to do another one now. Like I said, we want that to start next week, and hopefully this video will help to run through a few of the things that you need to consider in order to do all of that. So first things first, the genre. It's up to you what genre you choose to do for your writing assessment, obviously based on what you've covered with them so far this term. I would always encourage you to do something like fictional narrative, because you will get lots of writing there, and therefore it makes it a little bit easier to make a judgment. If you use a non-fiction piece, depending on what that non-fiction is, it can kind of limit the amount of writing you're going to get, and that makes the task of making a judgment a little bit harder. So if you can, I would go for something like fictional narrative. But if you want to choose a different genre, that's up to you. Second thing to consider, what are they going to write it in or on? Again, the choice is yours. You can get them to do it in their books if you would like them to. At least it keeps all their work in one place. But you will then need to photocopy it out of their book to put in their assessment folders at a later date. If you want to do it on a piece of paper, so it'd be easier just to make your judgments and do what you need to do with it, and then put it straight into the folder, that is also fine. So it's really, it's entirely up to you whether you use the books or the paper in this instance. In terms of next week, I would obviously dedicate your maybe Monday and Tuesday English lessons to preparing the students for their writing piece. So do all the background work, share the stimulus, talk through ideas, get them to do their planning, all of that sort of stuff. Will probably take you a couple of English lessons over Monday, Tuesday. And then look to get them writing maybe on the Wednesday and make sure it's finished off by the Thursday. So that's kind of how I would do the format for next week's English lessons. Remember that you have to make your judgment based on their first draft. So you are not able to give feedback and do any marking and then get them to sort of correct things or redraft. It's got to be their first piece. So that's how I would do next week. In terms of the tool that you're going to use to help you make your judgments, there's a couple of these floating around. Some from many years ago, some being given out recently. I've had a look at the ones that I'm familiar with. I know that this one, for example, was given out recently. It's good. This is the Key Stage 2 Writing Assessment rubric. It's good, but I don't think, for me certainly, there's not enough detail in here to make a judgment that I'm confident of. I also think because it's written as pupil can statements, I think this is really good to share with your students. It's really good for them to sort of start using to make their own judgments about their work and to work on what they think they need to improve on. But I'm not so sure that it's a great resource or tool for teachers to be using to make an accurate judgment. And don't forget, it's not just the judgment we're after. We're also looking for that diagnostic bit where we can really identify the skills that our students need to work on going into term 2. And whilst yes, there are some skills in this example, it's kind of limiting. There's not many. So I would discourage you from using that when you are making your judgments, but I would certainly encourage you, particularly older classes, to start looking at how you can use this with your students. And we can maybe talk about some ideas around that again. However, the other one that I shared recently that Ms. Yosha sent out to schools and has asked us to consider using is the Oxford Writing Criterion Scale. You're familiar with the format because it's very similar to the reading. If you haven't got this already, then I will email it out to you again. But very simply, once the students have done their piece of writing, you then find the criterion scale relevant to your year group. So if I have a year 4 student, I'm looking for the year 4 criterion scale, which is this one. You get a little bit of background information. It's worth reading that. Gives you an idea of how to do the writing pieces and what you're looking for. But this is the important part, and you need one of these for each student. You obviously, same as the reading, you look at the piece of writing you've got in front of you and you start ticking off all of these different things as you see them. When you get to the end, you add up the ticks and it tells you whether your student is not yet working at a year 4 standard, so below. That would be your teacher judgment, B for below. If they're within 6 to 9 ticks, they are developing. Now for us, that would be working towards. So between 6 and 9, you've got working towards minus, working towards, and working towards plus. And you can just divide this up into sort of 3 equal sections. So 6 ticks is working towards minus, maybe 7, 8 is around about working towards, with 9 being working towards plus. Then we've got 10 to 15 ticks is at the expected standard. Again, 10 could be expected minus, around about the 12, 13 expected, 14, 15 could be the expected plus, and obviously your greater depth is over here. So that's how you make your judgment on a year 4 student's piece of work. Now, the other thing that I would do, if you find that your student or any of your students has very few ticks on this, it might be worth going back and looking at the year 3 criterion scale and filling it out as well. You will not be able to use the year 3 scale to make a judgment on your students if they're year 4, because you have to use the year 4 standards. But if you've got very few ticks on the year 4 one, from a diagnostic point of view, to help you know where to go next term with that child, it might be worth going back and doing the year 3 criterion scale and seeing what you tick off. That will leave gaps, and you will then know the sorts of skills that you really need to start covering with them next term, before you move on to some of these year 4 skills. So, you know, there's 2 elements to that. One is you making your teacher judgment. You must use the criterion scale for your class. But the other element is the diagnostic part that helps you to know what to cover with the child, and you may want to go back. Similarly, if you have a child that gets all of these ticks, everything's ticked off, then it might be worth doing the year 5 criterion scale to see how much of that they know and to see where the gaps are and where you go next with that child. But please, just as a reminder, you must make your judgment based on the criterion scale for the year group that child is in. Okay, so once you've done all of that, the student has done their piece of work, you've used the scale, you've made your judgment, staple the criterion scale to the student's piece of work and put it, all of that goes into their assessment folder. On the 7th of December, we've got a PD day. We're going to be looking at the Fisher Family Trust trackers again, and we're also going to be inputting some data, some teacher assessment data. Don't worry, I'll talk you all through that on the 7th, but you are going to be taking your judgment from here and putting it into Fisher Family Trust. So we really need this to all be done by the 7th of December at the latest. All right, so I hope that was helpful. Again, I'm sorry it's by video. If you've got any questions, if you're not sure about anything, if it's come across as confusing, please let me know, and I can meet with you one-on-one or as a small group, or if we need to, we can arrange a quick meeting all together. But let me know if there's any problems. Otherwise, good luck with the pieces of writing next week. I'm sure they're going to be great, and I'll see you soon. Bye.